What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Southeastern 16, another edition of Bets and Ball Games with Edwards and Greeson. We're sponsored by Bet Online and MyPerfectFranchise.net. And let's tell you about Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL to entertainment and political props. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering, BetOnline. The game starts here. All right, Mr. Greeson joining us from Chattanooga. What's happening?
Not much. Just getting ready for a very full Thursday. Money NFL game tonight. Bengals Ravens is highly entertaining if you happen to have that streaming platform. But no, just trying to catch up on the sleep from that I robbed myself of watching well into Tuesday night, became Wednesday morning, almost became Wednesday afternoon after all the election coverage.
Well, around midnight that night, as I saw the betting odds balloon from minus 240 to 350 to 450 to 800 to 1,000 to 2,000 to 2,500, around midnight, I didn't think there was much drama left. And I got a good night's sleep that night. But okay, so folks, let me just warn the audience. I was diligently preparing for today's show. I have copious quality amounts of notes on Florida at Texas, Georgia at Ole Miss, and South Carolina at Vanderbilt. However, as I was wrapping up my notes for South Carolina at Vanderbilt, we got a little breaking news, and Jay's been diligently writing his column. He wasn't even aware until I ran into him in the green room. But Scott Strickland tweeted today that Billy Bob Napier will be retained and will be back for the Florida Gators in 2025, despite having a 1-10 record in rivalry games with 5 L's by double-digit margins, despite having a 10-18 record, straight up, that is, against games against Power 5 competition. And I say Power 5 instead of Power 4 because Oregon State blasted us in 2022. The Gators had never had 3 losing seasons in a row until the end of last year, since the 1940s. Now, Dan Mullen's on the hook for one of those, but we're on our way to a 4th straight losing season in a row, and we are currently, according to 247 Sports Composite, ranked number 51 nationally in the recruiting rankings for 2025, and Napier was hired because Mullen was struggling in recruiting. Napier first 2 recruiting classes were lesser ranked than Mullen's in the 247 Sports Composite. Only after adding 3 4-stars, none of which have had an impact this year, in the late portal window, did his 3rd recruiting class jump over Mullen's, and we're 51 now. And all those stats, 3 games below 500 overall if we're counting FCS and G5 opponents, still 3 games under 500. So what's your reaction to Billy Bob Napier returning, incomprehensibly returning for a 4th year? Wow. Oh my God.
Feel free to ask that question as unbiased as possible. I like the word incomprehensibly just dropped in there. My first thought, listening to your diatribe, because I think everyone knows, A, you're not a fan of Billy Bob, and B, you love you some Gators. My first thought, hearing your soliloquy, was how much more fun is Dan Mullen's life these days just going and sitting in the studio in Bristol talking about what people should be doing at halftime as opposed to what it was for 2 or 3 years. I mean, I'm not saying he's the shark humper that was Jim McElwain, but Dan Mullen's a pretty good football coach. And, I mean, I'm a little surprised by this, but I think in the modern era, I think coaches are going to have more security because you would rather pay into the NIL fund than you would to pay a guy not to coach. And that $20+ million buyout, even for somebody as flush as Florida, think of the players you can buy for $15 million.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add on it that is an important addition to the whole equation is that right when Napier was hired, or like a few months after he was hired, we opened our football only facility that had been built at a cost of about $85 or so million, which is considered one of the best in the country. So he's had that the whole time. Mullen didn't have that for his recruiting. Okay. And Napier also has a staff and a contract that is insane. Like, Florida has never, ever spent more money on staff, recruiting budget. Like, Florida's invested more money into Billy Bob's era than ever. And it's still the worst ever. And we're signing up for more.
Yeah, hey, as an Auburn fan and an Auburn graduate, I'm telling you, it's a craptastic time to be mediocre, because you just can't out Jimmy and Joe everybody anymore, because everybody's getting Jimmys and Joes. I mean, for God's sakes, Ole Miss has got 10 NFL players on their roster.
Yeah. So anyhow, we've got a lot to get to, and we'll start with the good, bad, and the ugly. But the point I was making is once I saw this breaking news, my preparation and my notes for the other SEC games ceased to exist. So I've got notes for 3 games. Now, I've got plenty of knowledge on the other games, but in terms of prepared notes and research, not so much. So,
well, hey, and let's ask this before we go into the good, bad, and the ugly, and we'll try to make certain our editors know we're going to be as quick as possible on the back end of this, because 1, you've only prepared for 3 games, and 2, I've got to go get my 8th grade daughter to a middle school basketball game in downtown Chattanooga at 2:00. So we're on the fast track. But whose seat is the hottest in the SEC?
Hugh
Is
Freeze.
Because if it Billy Bob is safe,
Hugh Freeze.
and everything I've heard out of Auburn, even as disappointing as this year has been, and college football has officially given way to college basketball for every Auburn fan I know.
Oh, by the way, sorry, interrupt. Remind me to talk a little Alabama hoops team totals as we're getting out the door later. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're all right, but yeah, that was an easy cash, because I think Kentucky's going to be the same thing. That team's going to shoot a bunch of threes. However, is Mark Stoops, is he the hottest seat in the SEC? Because Auburn's not going to fire Hugh, because even though you mentioned the frustration with Billy Bob, there's tons of frustration in Auburn. But Hugh Freeze has a top 5 national recruiting class.
Yeah. He's not number 51. Yeah. So, yeah, there is that. All right, let's.
Pittman?
Well, so Pittman's got 3 games left. Texas at home, Louisiana Tech at home. That'll get them bowl eligible, right? How many games they won? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that'll get them bowl eligible, and they can win at Missouri, depending on. I mean, Missouri's all banged up, so we'll see. All right, good, bad, and ugly. I'll start. The good: Diego Pavia is still Hugh Freeze's daddy. 17-7 win as a 7.5-point underdog. I was all over Vandy. I also had him on the money line, which jumped up to as high as plus 260 the morning of the game. I'll bore you with some more Diego stats when we get into Vandy, South Carolina. But just Diego Pavia, Vandy's bowl eligible. That's the good.
Well, I'm right there with you, but I wrote in my Monday column at timesfreepress.com that I had no idea the translation of Diego Pavia was Daddy of Freeze. So, I did not realize that was actually the verbal crossover. If you're going to go there, then I am going to I don't know how good they are, but this has been a good week to be a Tennessee fan. You beat Kentucky by double digits, not playing super good, and you're top 8 in the playoff with a chance to do some major league springboarding in 10 days against Georgia. So everything's in front of Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Vols, and I don't know if we've seen their best game yet.
All right, I'll go the bad. Arkansas. I think they've had a pretty solid season compared to expectations, but Ole Miss was missing a lot of guys last week, and that thing got out of hand fast. That thing was ugly and over with. You can't get run out of your own building. You can't get run out of your own building like that. That's bad for Arkansas, but they got a chance to recover. It's not all gloom and doom, but that was a bad performance last week.
My bad will be somebody we have been really high on for the first 2/3 of the season. Mike Elko and the Aggies laid an absolute floater in Columbia, South Carolina. I mean, that was a game that went from being tied to just being a runaway.
Yes. My ugly is going to be. I'm gonna say my ugly is Georgia. I mean, I guess they can flip the switch. They better flip it this week. They better be glad that Ole Miss is so banged up. We'll get to their injury report in a minute. Or let me just say my ugly is specifically Carson Beck. Let me do that instead of Georgia. Let's Carson Beck. Florida hasn't caused turnovers in 5 years. You throw 3 picks against Florida, and you are now, in addition to costing yourself, millions of dollars this year. Let's see where you are. Oh, let me go to this game log. Almost there. Okay. So in the last 3 Georgia games, he has thrown 8 interceptions. In the last 5 Georgia games, he's thrown 11 interceptions. He has had three INT games against Alabama, Texas, and Florida. He threw 3 picks. It cost them the game in Tuscaloosa. They somehow worked their way around it in Austin and Jacksonville.
My ugly, before I go handle my dog, is Peyton Thorne. And as long as he continues to take snaps in Auburn, Alabama, that will be the ugly. Period. End of conversation. I'll be right back.
All right, so let's get started with the noon Eastern kickoff. Florida at Texas. This one is at noon Eastern on ABC. And our good friends at BetOnline have Texas installed as a 21.5-point favorite with a total of 47. The Gators are plus 800 on the money line at BetOnline. There are some more generous prices off of the Gators on the money line, but that would be a waste of money. So I would not recommend doing that. The first half line on Texas is 11.5 with a total of 24. Before we get Jay's opinion, let me tell you about the injury report for the Gators. So I don't remember what day it came out. Or no, wait, it came out early this week. That's right. So since we last spoke, Florida wide receiver Eugene Wilson is out for the season. He had season-ending hip surgery. So they're now without, Graham Mertz, obviously, Wilson, their best cover corner, Jason Marshall, and they're going to be without Devin Moore and Asa Turner at Texas. Moore had an interception against Georgia last week, and then 6 key players are questionable, including DJ Lagway, Montrell Johnson, Elijah Badger, starting O-lineman, and Damian George, and starting D-tackle Cam Jackson. All those guys are questionable. Lagway, if he's not able to go, it'll be the walk-on transfer from Yale, Aiden Warner, who played one half and about half of the second quarter last week. Now, Florida is a double-digit underdog this year, 2-0 against the spread during Napier's disastrous tenure that will continue. 8 games as a double-digit dog, 6-2 against the spread. All righty. What are you thinking on this one?
Well, if folks are just itching to play this one, I would probably take Texas in the first half. If you can get it under that 14.
11.5.
Yeah, because I don't I don't see any way that Lagway plays, honestly.
Yeah.
And beat up going to Austin. That's a whole bunch of points. I tell you, of all the stats you tossed out there, the one that really jumps out and punches you in the face is that in his 3+ years, Billy Bob has been a double-digit underdog with the Gators 8 times. I mean, that right there, it screams to you that, holy buckets, what has happened? So, but the only play I see here is you've got to ride Texas. But on the game, this screams backdoor, clear the bench. I mean, Florida still has some dudes, but I don't see any way they're going to score enough points to keep up with them, especially early, if Lagway's in street clothes, which I anticipate.
Yeah, I anticipate that as well. Now, I will mention Texas is coming off a bye, has had 2 weeks. Florida's beat up, and Texas has got a big one on deck at Arkansas, where Arkansas will have 2 weeks to prepare. Just a couple of notes on the totals for these teams. The over has hit in back-to-back for Florida to improve to 5-3 overall, but the under is 3-0-1 for Texas in its last 4 to improve to 4-3-1 overall. And this is Longhorn's second lowest total of the season. And sophomore wide receiver Jonte Cook is no longer with the program. He's going to transfer. He had 8 catches, 137 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, that's noon Eastern ABC. All right, let's go to Georgia at Ole Miss, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. I'm like 90% sure ABC. And and Bet Online has Georgia at -3 with a total of 54.5, and the Rebels are plus 122 on the money line. All right, before we get Jay's opinion, let me tell you about the Rebels' wild injury report. 26 total players on there, but I think like 4 or 5 were probable. And I would think a lot of the questionable guys will play, but we don't know that. But here's the big thing. So Henry Parrish, the number 1 running back for Ole Miss, 678 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry average. He's out. All right. And the running back RB2, Matt Jones, is doubtful. He's got 222 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 5.2 yards per carry average. But then the really bad news is also doubtful is Trey Harris, perhaps the nation's best receiver, despite missing the last 2 games, 59 catches, 987 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And Jordan Watkins, who's the 3rd best receiver behind Juice Wells, he is doubtful. He has 25 catches, 549 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And there's 4-year starting center Caleb Warren is also doubtful. So with that in mind, now keep in mind, Jay and I have built-in interest on Ole Miss, and now I'm not wanting Lane Kiffin. I'm not wanting Lane Kiffin to be my coach, so I do want Ole Miss to make the playoff and win this game. But I've already got that built-in bet, as do you. Anyhow, your thoughts?
Even before you rattled off Ole Miss's injury woes, this is ride or die with Georgia here. I think even if Ole Miss is completely healthy, I mean, okay, I think we all agree, especially with his turnover concerns, Carson Beck has not lived up to it, and Jackson Dart had the game of the year pretty much last week, throwing for five bills plus and half a dozen touchdowns. But Georgia still, they've got, even without the Ole Miss injuries, if you rank these dudes on each team, Georgia's got what, 15 of the top 20, 22 players on the field? I mean, you're telling me it's going to be a field goal game? Give me Georgia big. And Georgia's handled moments like this. This is the biggest game every player in Ole Miss has ever been in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the biggest game for Ole Miss in many, 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 many moons. I mean, they had some big ones when they were trying to win the SEC West for the first time under Freeze, when Arkansas had that crazy pitch play.
Right.
One of the tight ends, they had a whole family of them. Started with an H last name.
Wasn't it Hunter Henry?
Yeah, but they had two. They had Hunter Henry and they had another Henry that eventually went there, and that and it ended up in Alex Collins' hands after a couple pitches, and Arkansas somehow won that game. Brandon Allen was fantastic that night. Okay, just a couple stats, and I'm with Jay. I lean Georgia here, and it's kind of a hedge on my win total bet. But I might do it on the money line, even though I don't like doing that because it's like minus 150. But I'm going to share a couple stats here. Just it's not endorsements either way. Kiffin's 5-year tenure, he's been a home underdog 6 times, and he is 4-2 against the spread with a pair of outright wins. Georgia's 0-2 ATS is a road favorite this year, and an abysmal 2-7 ATS in their last 9 as a road favorite. However, many, if not all, of those numbers were much bigger than the 2.5 or 3, or the 3 at Bet Online they're laying in this situation. So I don't know that Georgia bad road favorite stats really even applies. The under is 7-2 overall for the Rebels. They had hit 7 straight overs until last week, but the 94 combined points went over 54 last week. The under is 4-1 for Ole Miss in 5 home games. The under is 5-3 overall for Georgia, 2-1 in its 3 road assignments. All right, South Carolina at Vandy and Bet Online. Oh, I like seeing this. Here we go again. The early Thursday line moves. South Carolina's up to 4.5. This line was 3.5 an hour ago. Now South Carolina's 4.5. The total is 45. Vandy on the money line, plus 165. Your thoughts, Jay?
I would rather tug on Superman's cape and spit into the wind than bet against Diego Mother Bleeping Pavia. I mean, no, I'm not. No, there's no possible way. Now, Vandy's banged up. Now, they had a lot of dudes walking off the field and getting in the injury tent Saturday, and Auburn will hit you. They won't beat you, but they'll hit you. And but there's no way I'm going against Diego Pavia. And you know what he and Clark Lee have done that's amazing? They've actually made Nashville a home field advantage.
But time out. So you said all that last week, but you didn't bet on Diego Pavia. The question is, are you betting on Diego Pavia?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Oh, all right. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going last week because I'm like 0 for forever betting one way or the other on Auburn. I probably should have bet on Vandy just to give Auburn a chance to win. And
an emotional hedge.
Yeah.
I mean, what if y'all won by 6? That'd have been wonderful for you.
Yeah, but we lost by 10. So
that's true.
It sucked butt. I mean, and I watched it in Smyrna, Tennessee at a Longhorn next to the five Vandy fans who were not in Auburn, Alabama. And they just were, it was terrible. Terrible.
All right. So Jay likes Vandy. Guess what? So do I. All right. So they've been underdogs 6 times. They're 6-0 against the spread with 4 outright wins. They've only lost 3 times. Their losses by 3 again, and by 4. We're catching 4.5. I made the line of pick 'em. And look, South Carolina hasn't lost to Vandy since 2008. And
Auburn had never lost to Vandy in Auburn. And what happened? Diego Pavia happened. That's what happened.
This is true. And so Pavia, by the way, 15-3 TDINT ratio and a team high 563 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. So South Carolina was really gunning for that game last week, a night game at home, which I'm pretty sure is their first at least in terms of SEC home games. I think it was their first one at night this year. So they were really gunning for that one. They had 2 weeks to prepare, and with their domination of Vandy, maybe just a little bit of a flat letdown spot. But I'm not trying to say anything bad about South Carolina. South Carolina is having a good season, and they're off a great win. I just think it's a toss-up game in terms of who wins outright. So give me Vandy plus 4.5. And, of course, I will have a little bit of Diego on the money line. And what did I
Is there any possible way we can get like all the Daves back together from the Jefferson Pilot? Because this game screams 11 o'clock Central. Got a cocktail in your hand before you go to the tailgate. This screams Jefferson Pilot with the terrible graphics across the bottom.
Sure.
And I mean, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it says Tennessee, Kentucky about to kick off, even though that game started at noon. I mean, it's just this absolutely is what Jefferson Pilot football was in my young adulthood.
But I want to make the argument, at least in the Texas game, does the SEC have the ability to flex these games, or are they? Well, then why is Vandy on the SEC Network every week? Like,
because nobody cares. I mean, yeah, I care. Yeah, we love Diego Pavia, but compared to fan bases, I mean, you're talking about national exposure between Texas, Florida, or South Carolina at Vandy. Come on now, you're smarter than that.
All right. Okay. So, again, I got sidetracked on my preparation with the Strickland news. So okay, here we go. All right. Our next game we've got 3 more. All right. We got Mississippi State at Tennessee. Oh, and by the way, Vandy in South Carolina is SEC Network, 4:15 p.m. Eastern. All right. We got Mississippi State at Tennessee, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I am looking for that game. Here it is. All right. BetOnline has Tennessee as a 23.5-point favorite with a total of 61. Mississippi State on the money line is plus 1240. And in the first half, the Vols are minus 14 with a total of 31.5. Are you an experienced entrepreneur looking to diversify, or are you an employee that's simply tired of answering to the man? If so, let me tell you about our guy, Andy Ludecke, and his business, MyPerfectFranchise.net. So, Andy was in corporate America, married with a kid, another on the way, wanted to start his own business. He did just that. He's got multiple businesses now. He's killing it, and he's got this business, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Here's how it works. Look, Andy wants to help you. You go to his website, you set up an intro call, 1-hour consultation, 100% free. He's good people. He wants to help you. You're going to tell him about your passions, your skills, your goals, the time and money you have to invest in this endeavor. And then Andy's going to figure out what sort of business fits your DNA. He registers you with potential franchises. He'll find the best franchise that suits the vision and corporate culture you want. And before you know it, you'll be on your way, and Andy will have you making greenbacks galore. So what are you waiting for? Reach out to my man, Andy Ludecke, MyPerfectFranchise.net. You can call him at 404-973-9901, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Okay, up next, let's go Mississippi State at Tennessee, 7 p.m. Eastern kick, and we've got BetOnline with Tennessee at 23.5. and 61, Mississippi State plus 1240 on the money line, and Tennessee minus 14 for first half bets. What do you think? Well, before I ask you what you think, I just want to say, like, I think I said I leaned Kentucky last week, but then I saw no. By Thursday, it was some radio show in Birmingham. On Wednesday, I said I leaned Kentucky. Then the injury report came out, and I was like, nah, I can't do it because they were missing those defensive players. Okay, now I remember. But anyway, I think Tennessee's overvalued, not necessarily for this game because I don't know where Mississippi State's head is at, but I just don't think Tennessee's that good.
There have been a handful of these games all year, and this one is chief among them that I want zero action either side. first half, total, who knows? Tennessee's infinitely better. You're 100% right about where is Mississippi State and where is their focus. And we talked at the beginning of the show about who's on a hot seat. I know it's early in his tenure in Starkville, but, I mean, it's a tough time to be bad in this league. But here's the other thing. The biggest game in the Josh Heupel era is in 10 days. If this game finishes 17-10, would that shock you with Georgia on the horizon, as schizophrenic as Tennessee has been over the last month? I mean,
no, I wouldn't. And you want to take a stab at the line for Tennessee at Georgia next weekend?
I'd probably go, knowing how Vegas likes to do things, I'd probably go 9.
8.5 for Georgia. And while we're at it, do we have any other lined SEC games? Maybe not. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Texas at Arkansas.
12.
14. Yep. So, anyway, I interrupted you. So you were just talking about the look-ahead spot.
I've got zero feel for this game. I've got zero feel. I mean, Tennessee's at home. They're better. They've got an endless possibilities to play for, including being in the top 8 of the first college football playoff ranking. But they also have struggled to play up to their level of expectation and frequently play to their level of competition, which makes 24 seem impossible. And they've got Georgia looming on the horizon. And so the only play I see here, honestly, and I don't advise this, but I can't lay that many points with a Tennessee team that's this schizophrenic.
Yeah.
But I don't trust Mississippi State either.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So Alabama at LSU, Red Stick at night. And we have from Bet Online, Alabama -3 with a total of 58. And the Bayou Bengals are +128 on the money line. All right. Yes. So LSU has been tough at home, per usual. Their only losses coming in Vegas to USC and at Texas A&M. They really haven't played anybody at home other than Ole Miss, but they got a comeback victory there. And now they get the Tide. And Alabama, in its road games this year, they lose at Tennessee. They lose at Vanderbilt. Now, they did smash Wisconsin on the road, but 0-2 both straight up and ATS in 2 SEC road games. What are your thoughts here?
Well, first, I think it's worth the caveat that Wisconsin was driving the football, and their QB1 gets hurt and misses the rest of the game in that Alabama smackdown. Now, Alabama was better and they're more talented, but Wisconsin, that I'm all over LSU here. I think both teams have a bye. Both teams are going to be as healthy as you can imagine this deep into the season. But this game is monstrous for Brian Kelly. You can't lose this one. I mean, and yeah, I know Kalen DeBoer and Alabama and all those kids and Jalen Milroe, they all view this as a monstrous game too. But I'm sorry, this will be double reverse pass, onside kick, pull out every stop. And Saturday night in Red Stick, man, I'm not saying it's as a lead pipe cinch like Diego Pavia, but there ain't a whole lot of teams I've seen that I feel real comfortable, not coached by Nick Saban or Steve Spurrier, that have trotted into Baton Rouge at night and handled their business.
Yeah, I lean LSU here. I will note that Kelly's been a home underdog 3 times during his tenure. He beat Mississippi State 31-16 in year 1 as a 3-point underdog, and he also that same year beat Alabama in OT as a 13.5-point home underdog. And then earlier this year, or just last month, he beat Ole Miss 29-26 as a 4-point home underdog. So 3-0, both straight up in ATS as a home underdog. Not a huge opinion for me, but LSU is my opinion. Not an enormous opinion by any means, but I'll be on LSU. Okay, one more left, and that is Oklahoma at Missouri, which I don't even think it's a game that we can handicap until we know if Brady Cook and or Nate Noel are playing, and most notably Mr. Cook, because there is a sizable downgrade to Drew Pine, who was just awful.
Hey, side question here, and we probably should have talked about it last week, but what kind of horse steroids did they shoot Brady Cook up with to get him back on the field for that Auburn game?
We did talk about this. We've talked about this for 3 weeks.
I know we talked about it for 3 weeks, but I'm still ticked off. They must have had like a fire hose worth of like tranquilizers, just shooting him up and down.
Yeah. Yes.
Man, Auburn football makes me do stupid stuff.
Yeah. Same with Florida. Yep. Look, I mean, if I think Brady Cook's healthy, I love Missouri, but I don't know that I don't think he's healthy. And Nate Noel is not healthy, and Mookie Cooper is doubtful. So I can't have an opinion until I know on the Brady Cook deal.
Well, you know what? I think you could probably ride or die with the team that has the most Mookies. That will. I mean, I don't have any of your research and stats, but I think teams with the most Mookies are covering it like 86%.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up our previews, but that's a good thing because I've got some non-SEC picks, and we do want to get to some SEC basketball, by the way. And Auburn, were you on Auburn last night? And what can you share with us? I was presuming you watched.
I did, and was on. I've been on all 3 of the high-scoring, highly regarded teams. Not Tennessee. I think Tennessee's overvalued. I think they've lost too many pieces. Yeah, I love Zakai Ziegler, but that's a whole lot of turnover. But I think Alabama, Kentucky, and Auburn are going to really put up some huge numbers. And I was comfortable all week laying 25 plus with each of them.
And by the way, all the SEC team. Oh no, I'm sorry. I guess that's right. Missouri lost to UCF.
Texas A&M lost.
A&M lost to UCF, wasn't it? Who did Missouri? Yeah. Missouri lost to somebody pretty good. Oh yeah, at Memphis. But South Carolina was the one they lost as a 19-point favorite to the UNF Ospreys. So not super shameful losses for A&M and Missouri, but not a good one for Lamont Paris and company. Oh, I'm sorry, in Texas also went down to Ohio State by an 80-72 score. But everybody else in the SEC in the win column. So Alabama is going to play host to Arkansas State on Friday night, tomorrow night. And I'm sorry, let me go back here. Okay, here we go. And Arkansas State beat Akron in overtime in its opener. So look, Alabama had their team total the other night over 95. It was over with like 6 minutes, 6 minutes left. If their team total is less than 100, so 99.5 or fewer for the game against Arkansas State on Friday, I'll be on Alabama's team total over. And look, as long as they're playing these low mid-major teams at home, I think they're going to score 100 every time. And so Alabama's loaded. They're the best team in the country, in my opinion. And I'll remind listeners, as I'm sure I did back in March and over the summer, that about 2.5 to 3 minutes after Big Cliff from Rutgers committed, I hammered Alabama at 20-1 odds to win the national title, and they were down to 12 or 10-1 within an hour or two.
They just play so fast, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly think, especially as long as that core stays healthy, especially Sears, he's Jaden Daniels. I mean, you play their team over and maybe the game over all year. I don't know. I mean, is it going to have to be triple digits before you shy away from? I mean, if their team over starts with an 8, you got to bang it, right?
Wait, who? I'm sorry.
Alabama.
Yeah. Oh, anytime. Yeah, 100%. Yes, they're going to be the best offense in the country. I think they were second in offensive efficiency last year at KenPom. All right, let's get into some non-SEC picks. I will start with my NFL, and I hope our listeners don't tune out when we're done with the SEC games because we've been feeding you, or I know especially last week, man, feeding you some monster winners, Commanders and the Lions. Pretty sure I said to parlay it or reverse it. And hey, we're going right back to Old Faithful. These are my two biggest plays of the weekend. That is the Detroit Lions, who I got at -3 at Houston. The Lions are the best team in the NFL. They've won 6 in a row, both straight up and against the spread. 4 of those wins by double-digit margins. And the 24-14 win at Green Bay in the rain last week, that was a misleading final. Green Bay scored, got a 2-point conversion with like 3.5 minutes left. They were down 24-3 early third. Jared Goff, last 5 games, 11 touchdown passes, no picks. They acquire a 3-time Pro Bowl pass rusher from the Browns earlier this week. And look, Houston's struggling, man. 1-2, but straight up in ATS in its last 3. Stephon Diggs is out. We don't know about Nico Collins yet for this week, and their O-line cannot protect Stroud. I got it at 3, but if it's 3.5 or 4, I'm fine with that. Maybe buy it to 3 at 3.5. I think Detroit's going to pound these guys. Detroit's an ATM. So are the Commanders. I'll come back to them in a minute. What else you got for this weekend, Jay?
Well, one, I love the Lions almost every time, primarily because Dan Campbell is that guy. He's one of those guys that everybody in the league wants to play for. I mean, he seems not only genuine, but the perfect blend of intensity and passion and motivation and all of those things. Yep. And you have been banging the man. I think Jaden Daniels last year at LSU and this year at Washington, he's like paid for my son's first year of college, to be quite honest about it. I mean, it's been fascinating and phenomenal. I'm going to take Arizona State as my best college play of the weekend.
Okay, well, real quick, do you know their stud running back is doubtful?
I do, but I also know Gus Malzahn's prominently involved.
Yeah, no, I still kind of lean ASU as well, but I don't know if I'll play him. I wanted to play him, and then I saw the running back injury, and I was like, sorry,
I know, but they're 6-2. Malzahn's team is just spiraling. His seat's as hot as anyone's. They've got to go all the way across the country to Arizona State. It's as long as it's still under a field goal, with or without the running back. I think the Sun Devils make some business decisions on Malzahn's crew.
Dillingham was under Malzahn at Auburn, wasn't he? Or am I off on that?
I think you know who is going to be a hot name bounced around to a whole lot of jobs is SMU coach Rhett Lashley.
Yeah, I think Arkansas wants him, but I mean, I don't know that that's going to – I think Pittman's going to be retained. Well, we'll see. All right, so back to my lines. I forgot. I also am on their team total over 26.5. So now let's get into my Commanders, who I've backed every game since week 2, and I'm 7-0-1 against the spread doing it, and they continue to be undervalued. I made them 4 against the Steelers, who I have a lot more respect than their opponents here in previous weeks. But I mean, Washington's automatic at home. We got the quarterback advantage. We got home field. We're only laying 2.5. I mean, right back to the Commanders yet again, and I'll be parlaying and or doing a reverse with the Lions and Commanders, just like I did last week. And let me give you another college game, another automatic play here. Let me make sure this thing hasn't moved to 15. I'm talking about Michigan at Indiana. I saw some books at 14.5 earlier. Oh, BetOnline's got it at 14. Okay, great. Okay, great. So Indiana has won its first 9 games. They have only won 9 in program history twice, 1943 and 1967. So they're going for their 10th win for the first time ever. If Kirk Cignetti's not National Coach of the Year, it'll be a criminal act. So they had never trailed all year going into Michigan State last week, but Sparty jumped on them 10-0. So how does IU respond? 47 unanswered points, another easy spread cover. Curtis Rourke, back from a thumb injury. He had missed 1.5 games. No problem. 4 touchdowns, no picks, 263 passing yards. He's got a 19-3 TDI&T ratio on the season, and Michigan has lost 3 of its last 4 and is mired in a 1-4 ATS slump, and their 4 outright losses this year have all been by double digits, and they're 0-2 both straight up and ATS in a pair of road assignments. And star corner Will Johnson, projected first-round pick, he's questionable along with the other starting corner. And Johnson has already missed back-to-back games. He might be making a business decision here. I'm on Indiana again. ATM machine, -14.
Speaking of our ride or dies, and we are consistent, we'll ride them till they buck you. But
we're talking about Army.
Out there, you folks out there in betting land, I know Army betrayed us last week, but we had no idea that Bryson Daly wasn't going to play.
Hey, nobody did. He was doing national interviews on ESPN all week. They'd had 2 weeks to prepare. There was no mention of him being injured whatsoever. Nobody knew.
Which was painful because I know, like you, I had them pretty heavy both first half.
Team total over?
Yeah, team total over. And they all of them losses in a 20-3 win over Air Force. But Jeff Monken, Army coach, said that Daly's going to practice this week. And if Daly's on the field, Army -5 at North Texas, give me every piece of that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not betting it until Saturday morning. I see some video of him out there on the field. But I would agree if he plays. 19 rushing touchdowns, 7-0 TDI&T ratio. But yeah, that's just BS. I mean, come on, man. They gotta report their injuries. This is nonsense. Gambling is legal all across the country now. This is insane. All right. I don't really have a whole lot else. I was gonna throw out the Army. If Daly, I feel like there was one more game where I was waiting on an injury. If Kyron Drones is healthy, I might be interested in Vatek if they're +7 to Clemson. But I don't know if he's going to be healthy, so don't hold me to that. Oh, another one. We got Georgia Tech as a double-digit underdog again, but I'm not interested unless Haynes King is back, and he's supposed to be a game-time decision. So, and I forget.
I'll tell you one that's not only a play on, but a play against. Utah is beat to hell and back.
Yeah.
And BYU going in there in what is known as the Holy War. I know Cam Rising. I think Cam Rising is your age, but he is showing that being a 17-year starting college quarterback can really be hard on the body. But I don't think Utah, even as much as you and I both like Kyle Winningham, I don't think they have anything for BYU.
Yeah. One last thing from me. My Bearcats, another moneymaker for me this year, except for the last time out against Colorado. I've mostly backed them as underdogs this year, so I'm hesitant to lay 5. But if you got another game you're interested in, teaser wise or a money line parlay, I am confident Cincinnati wins that game. But I would never lay 200 on a money line play. But if you got somebody to tease them with, you know what? You know what? I think Pittsburgh could be a good package with Cincinnati. Pittsburgh's hosting Virginia as 7.5-point favorite. If you want to do Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in a money line parlay or a teaser, I kind of like that. But I just got my stud horses that I'm betting heavy, and I'm parlaying them and all that. I may do some live betting. I don't have a ton of games I like this week. You?
Well, but you're on a pretty good roll because your horses have been
My horses have been
they've been pulling the wagon. I mean, the
fast.
Commanders until last week, I'd been ride or die with Army. I mean, Indiana's been good to you. So and I you know what? I'll be on Alabama until they go on the road for a true road game, and then we'll see. But I'll be riding Alabama basketball, that is, for at least until Thanksgiving and beyond.
Yeah, I think they have one of those games next week. I think it's at a neutral. I think they have a third home game, I believe, on Monday, and then it might be UConn. They got a big game next week against somebody on a neutral. And my apologies, I can't think of it right now. Maybe it is UConn. All right. All right.
That's got us. Hey, I don't think the line is out yet, but I got the Signal Mountain Lady Eagles laying double digits against the Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy in middle school girls hoops here in about 3 hours. So if you've got somebody who'll take that bet, then by golly, you need to run and hide because they no thank you.
Okay. I hear you. All right. For Jay Greeson, I am Brian Edwards. Thanks to our sponsors, MyPerfectFranchise.net, my guy Andy Ludecke, and Bet Online. And thanks to Max and Blake back at Southeastern 16, getting this thing edited up and should be available tonight. For Jay Greeson, I'm Brian Edwards. Good luck with all your bets and ball games this weekend. Make sure you're on the Commanders, the Lions, and the Hoosiers, and the Diego Pavias. We're over and out.